Hello, and welcome to today's episode. I'm going to be your host, the Irrelevant Nerd. Today, we're going to be talking about the current state of Star Wars. Now, you'll have some people online who will say that Star Wars has never been stronger, but that's just very clearly not true. It is maybe the most fractured fan base that you will ever find, and the responses to the more recent projects have not been super promising at all. And so for today's episode, I want to look forward at some of the upcoming projects that we know about and see and kind of look and see if we really think these are going to bring Star Wars back. Now, my opinion when I look over some of these announced projects, rumored projects, things like that, I don't really have that much excitement for any individual project, and I think some of the stuff that they're choosing to go with, it confuses me, and I don't really know why they're moving forward with some of these projects and not doing other projects. It just seems odd. So from my perspective, it just doesn't look like we have a whole bunch to look forward to, and so I just don't know if Star Wars is ever going to be able to pull itself back up to where it was. So looking over their upcoming projects that they have is, I believe the next one is supposed to be The Mandalorian and Grogu. Comes out in a little less than a year in May of 2026. Now, if you had announced this movie after season 2, I would be so hyped. I would be pumped. I would really think, I'm like, okay, this is how we're going to get people back into the theaters for Star Wars. But after, season 3 came out and wasn't super well received, I felt like almost all of the momentum was killed, and I think the reception of some of the other shows didn't help. Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, things like that, and it really just kind of killed interest in the the quote unquote Mandoverse. And so my excitement has been personally dampened a lot for this project, and some of the behind the scenes stuff that you're hearing is it's basically just a really long episode of The Mandalorian, and I just don't think that's gonna do it. People barely showed up for season 3 of The Mando, so I don't think they're gonna show up for like an episode of season 4 of Mando in theaters. I think this is such a weird move. It's obvious as to why they're doing it. Grogu is easily the most profitable thing that Disney Star Wars has ever made. So this is very clearly a decision made by the suits. They're like, oh, this will make money. These are your most bankable characters. And I don't see it. And then you have, it was announced at Star Wars Celebration, you have the upcoming animated mall show. I'm excited for that. I think that the Star Wars animated shows in the veins of the Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Rebels, things like that are kind of the best things that have come out of Disney Star Wars. And you have Sam Witwer coming back, and it does, answer a question that fans have legitimately been asking of how did Darth Maul get here? And when he popped up in Solo, people are like, what's happening? How did he get here? People love the character. So this is one that I do think people are going to get excited for. However, the animated shows have a more narrowing audience than the, even The Mandalorian, but especially the movies is just not going to be the draw that's going to get people back in, going to flood the studio with a bunch of money, so they'll pump out more projects. So I'm personally excited for it, but I think this is a show that for, basically any casual or non-Star Wars fan is going to be a non-starter for them. So I think this is a good project. I just think it's, too small of a drop in the bucket to really do anything. And then the other big project that they announced was Star Wars Starfighter, the Ryan Gosling Star Wars movie that's going to be directed by what's his name, Sean Levy, the dude who directed Free Guy, Deadpool and Wolverine. I think he's working on season 5 of Stranger Things. So he's a really hot name right now, and very clearly knows how to work within the studio system and make movies that make money. But I don't know if this is really the best dude to bring into Star Wars. You don't know where his fan level is, how much of a knowledge he has of the lore. I think Ryan Gosling will do a great job in whatever his character ends up being. Like, he's been pretty picky about the roles he chooses, so the fact that he was willing to come in on this project, that gives me a little hope. But again, it's not something that's going to ignite the casual Star Wars fan. It's going to be something that brings Ryan Gosling fans to the theaters. So I think it has the potential to be good. I just don't know where the excitement level is going to be, even with general audiences and their love of Ryan Gosling. And I think, I don't know, Star Wars is... it's not all about the Force and the Jedi and the Sith, but that's kind of the biggest draw. And so when they have these projects that don't center around those types of things, it makes me worry. Like, the one exception you have of being successful really in that endeavor is Rogue One. And Rogue One is so deeply tied into... the original trilogy, that's kind of where the excitement came from. And they did end up including Darth Vader for, the most badass scene of the movie by far. But the fact that it's non-Jedi centered, and, we don't really know how it's going to move, like the universe's story forward, or if it's just going to be some small adventure. I don't really know how excited I can get about it. I don't know if I like Sean Levy coming into the universe, even though I'm excited for Ryan Gosling to come into the universe. But there hasn't been a ton of chatter that I've seen online, and the reception has been kind of mixed. Like, a lot of Star Wars fans being like, all right, like Ryan Gosling in Star Wars, cool. And so none of these projects that I've talked about so far, I'm like, I just don't know if this is gonna do it. And then some of the other projects that they've said are happening is you have a new, like, Rey movie coming out. It's a new Jedi Order. It's going to show her basically training the next generation. It is going to be Daisy Ridley coming back, so it's not like super far off in the future. It'll obviously be within a reasonable time frame after episode 9. And I'm potentially excited for that, because I would like to see... I think the move for Star Wars is you have to get away from the Skywalker saga, because to a lot of people, they're ruining it, they're tainting it. The canon's becoming mixed and confusing and extremely restrictive when you're starting to make these projects and certain characters have to do certain things, have to be in certain places. And so a lot of contradictions have popped up in this new canon, which is kind of funny, because they wiped the entire, like, extended universe, or the legends, or whatever they want to call it, and made it all non-canon so they could have a more organized, streamlined timeline to work with. And then within, 10 years of them owning the company, they had already kind of fucked it up. And so I think going outside of the time frame of the first 9 movies is smart. Expand the universe. You can get some characters that people don't have a ton of significant attachment to, while still getting some, potentially fun cameos in there without it being, like, massively distracting to the film. But however, the reception to the Rey character has not been great. I think Daisy Ridley is a fine actor. I enjoyed her quite a bit in the Force Awakens, and I don't think her performance is the issue, but her character, initially being treated as this mystery box, and then it was nobody, and then you're actually a Palpatine, but, like, kind of, because it's, Palpatine's clone, so he is her granddad, but, like, genetically, since her dad's a clone, then Palpatine's, like, kind of her father. But I just don't think she was super well written as a character, and unfortunately, it's because the movies she was in were so disorganized. But fans just don't like this character really that much at all. She didn't take damage. She has a lot of strength that is a little bit undeserved. I don't care if she has Palpatine blood. I wouldn't have cared if she had Skywalker blood. That's one of the things, is you need to see people train, earn the skills, so when they use those skills, it's believable. Like, she shouldn't be able to just come out and match Kylo Ren like that. And I know there are explanations in the book of like, oh, when they touched hands, she basically learned everything he knew, and that's why she's just as proficient and she's just as powerful, because she has this different super strong Force blood, the Palpatine against the Skywalker blood. And I think this is one of those movies that when you look at Lucasfilm, you're like, why are you making this? The sequel trilogy was making less and less money, was getting more and more hated by fans as it went, and I don't really know why you would use this character to be like, all right, this is how we're going to push the universe forward, like, get hyped. It's hard to, when all of the projects that this character was already in were kind of, the reason that Star Wars started to unravel in terms of story, in terms of fan love, all of that. And it's the director, her name is, it's like Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, something like that. I'm probably terribly mispronouncing it, but she's tapped in to do that movie, and she's really more famous for doing like documentaries. She's not a big name director at all, and she has messages that she wants to push, and I think that historically speaking, when fans see those things in Star Wars or Marvel, they push back. We don't want to be taught, we want to be entertained, which you can, think of that what you will, but that's how you get people's money, is you have to get them excited. And so you have this character, or this person who's coming in with this character that nobody loves, and I'm like, where's the possible hype for this? I don't see it, and I think it's going to be another one of those projects that's just so massively hated on by the internet during its production, and then if it comes out and it's, anything below mega love by the critics and the fans, it's just going to get torn apart, and it'll hurt the Star Wars brand worse than it already has been. You have the James Mangold, I think they're just calling it the Dawn of the Jedi. I don't know if that's the official title or just the working name for the project, but it's going to be directed by James Mangold, who's a director that I do love. I was very, very disappointed by Indiana Jones. I was sort of depressed that he had taken on that project, because to me, all of his movies before, you would look at them and be like, oh, if he signed on for a project, he believes in it, it's going to be of a certain quality, and the newest Indiana Jones just wasn't at all. I don't know, like, it might be even worse than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That might be too far, I don't know, but point being is my faith is a little bit shaken in him, and even though he is a writer on it, he's co-writing it with Beau Wilmon, who helped write Andor, which has fantastic writing, don't get me wrong, but my faith has been shaken in James Mangold a little bit, and I don't, based off of what Disney has kind of done with the canon already and the changes they've made and how, the Force works and the crystals work, I don't know if they're going to have a satisfying introduction of the Jedi and Force wielders, and it's potentially one of those things that if they do it wrong, it just kind of ruins the premise of the Force in Star Wars. So to me, this is actually a really big gamble. Like, if you don't get it right, you've basically wrecked everything about Star Wars for the major fans. And whether or not, companies should cater to the major fans, those are really kind of the ones that you get your money from. And Star Wars fans have a history of pouring money into this franchise. Like, I have the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire trilogy. I have 3 different copies of each of those books because they have different covers. They're the same books, but I love the covers so much I had to get them. And that's why Star Wars fans are so profitable. I bought the same book 3 times. like 3 times. I have 2 Darth Vader lightsabers, like of different qualities. And so at some point you do have to cater to those fans a little bit if you want to continue with financial success in this franchise. Like, you don't want to do everything they ask you to do because, not every fan has the best ideas, but you have to do things that keep them excited and respect the original source material. And I don't think Disney has a history of doing that. So when they're like, oh yeah, we're going to go back to the very beginning of the Force users in this universe, it actually makes me incredibly nervous because I think they're going to be probably pretty disrespectful and shitty about it. The only movie that I have kind of potential excitement for is the Dave Filoni Mandoverse movie. I believe that it's rumored that it's going to be titled Heir to the Empire, which is what they should have done with the sequel trilogy to begin with, was just adapt those books, change a few things to make it a little bit more cinematic, and put those on screen, which I understand it's hard with the ages of Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher before she passed, and Mark Hamill. But this is very clearly what you should have done. So they bring Thrawn back after, making everything not canon, including the books he was in, but then they end up bringing him back in with new books. They brought him into the Rebels TV show, the Ahsoka show, and he's going to be in season 2 of the Ahsoka show, as well as I believe he is the main adversary of the New Republic, Dave Filoni, Heir to the Empire movie, whatever it ends up being called. That one I'm excited for, because I do like a lot of the stuff they've set up in the Mandoverse, as much as the quality of the shows has kind of gone down and dwindled my excitement. But I think if they incorporate some of the elements of the original trilogy in with what they have, I think you could actually have something really special. And if you create a more satisfying story that kind of bridges in between episodes 6 and 7, it's not going to increase people's opinion of the sequel trilogy, but it gives them something that's their sequel to the original Star Wars, and then you might be able to win some people back and be like, going forward, we'll just kind of focus, see what we're going on. So to me, this one actually has the most hope of bringing people back in. I'm a big Dave Filoni fan. I don't think he always makes the best calls, and I don't know if he's the best showrunner. If you look at Ahsoka, I really liked the first season, but over the last 2.5 episodes, it really just kind of started to fall apart and left a really weird taste in my mouth that I was like, oh my god, like, what happened? It was going so well, what'd you do? So I think if you can get Dave Filoni really just to be more like on the creative side, like the guy guiding the lore behind the scenes, I think it'd be better. But he's going to direct it, and I do have faith that he is putting in all the work that he possibly can. And I hope it's good. And if it's good, and Dave Filoni does end up getting to lead Lucasfilm, I think the combination of those two things would revamp the hardcore Star Wars fans, which is really kind of what you need to bring the franchise back. But even then, with the decline of the Mandoverse, I do have my worries about what the quality of this movie is going to be, and I hope that Dave Filoni has people in there helping him, because I just don't know if he has the ability to pull it all together by himself. And those are all like the official projects. There have been other projects that they've been talking about for years that they say are going to happen that don't happen, or have just been kind of sitting on the back shelf for however long, because like, oh yeah, this writer needs this much time and this director needs this much time, with like biggest example being the Rian Johnson trilogy, where like I think it was before The Last Jedi came out, Kathleen Kennedy announced that Rian Johnson was going to write and direct his own trilogy of Star Wars movies. They didn't announce whether or not it was going to be, like 10, 11, 12, or if it was going to be before then, or is it the Old Republic? They didn't say for sure, but they had such confidence in The Last Jedi that they said that was happening. And I believe Kathleen Kennedy has made some statements since then, like 2023, maybe 2024, stating that they are still happening, but Rian Johnson's busy, and they're just kind of waiting on his schedule. But I don't think this is ever actually going to happen, just based off of what The Last Jedi kind of did to Star Wars, kind of the big start at the end, you could say. Whether or not you loved it, you can't deny that is where Star Wars started to just break. And it's hard to get excited for a trilogy of movies by somebody who very clearly doesn't care about the lore of Star Wars. If it came in, they're like, oh, it's just directed by Rian Johnson, but it's written by like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni or whoever, I would be excited. I think Rian Johnson's a talented director and a good storyteller. I just don't think he's the dude for Star Wars. And The Last Jedi came out in 2017, so it's 8 years, no updates, production has not started, we don't know what the movies are about, we don't know when they're coming out, we don't know when production's starting. Rian Johnson has been mum on it for years, and so I don't know if these movies are ever going to happen, which has been part of the problem with Star Wars. Is it's also hard to get hyped for projects that you don't know if they're going to happen. Like, they've announced so many things that ended up not happening. Like the Kenobi movie they were going to do, the Fett movie they were going to do. They both eventually got turned into TV shows with less than positive reception to both, which, if anybody was wondering, Kenobi is actually kind of what broke me. I stuck in with Disney Star Wars like as hard as I could until I got to the end of Kenobi, and that's where cracks started to form for me personally. Just FYI, not that any of y'all care. And then you had the Game of Thrones guys. I don't remember their names, like Benioff or whatever, that they were going to do their own trilogy of Star Wars movies, and it was heavily rumored to be Old Republic. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. But then they came out and just released one of the worst final seasons of television of all time. It was so negatively received by so many people that these projects have not been talked about at all since they were announced in 2018. It was supposed to be 3 films, and we get some more similar speak of, oh well, they're so busy and they're developing projects for Netflix and this and that, which none of them have come out because they have kind of tainted themselves because of what they did to Game of Thrones to try to rush to Star Wars, and now this trilogy of movies is probably never going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen. And based off of some interviews and some things that they have said, it doesn't seem like they think it's ever going to happen. But Disney still won't let it go. Kind of same with the Taika Waititi film, which, same thing. Hot director. They announce a project with him. Director goes through some tumultuous times by, releasing Love and Thunder, a god-awful Marvel movie, quite possibly the worst one in the entire MCU. And now all of a sudden, there's no updates. I believe they announced that there was a scriptwriter that came in this year, but Star Wars has a history of bringing in these scriptwriters who then cycle out every 3-4 months, and then the project gets delayed again. So they're saying it's happening, but no updates of any kind. And then, or even movies that went deeper into production, like Rogue Squadron, which was shelved indefinitely, which is another one they've said, oh no, we're definitely still working on it, it's happening. No updates, nothing at Star Wars Celebration. And what is there to be hyped about? It's about starfighters. Who cares? It's like I said earlier, like Jedi, Sith, the Force. That is what makes Star Wars cool. I don't know if you're going to do the non-Force stuff. I just think you need to stick to TV, because the Force, Jedi, Sith, lightsaber, that is what makes it unique in the movie space. And without that, they are just kind of sci-fi movies. And so if they're not great stories, they're just not going to hit. And I believe the Lando series is supposed to still be going with Donald Glover, which I'd be excited to see. I did think he was the best part of Solo. But we'll see. Again, no updates. It was happening, and then it was not happening, and then Donald Glover's busy working on other projects and his music and this movie and this show. So it's another case of they've had this announced for years. and we've heard nothing for at least 4 or 5 years at this point. Nothing of substance other than an actor, a director, writer saying, oh yeah, like it's in active development, but it's hard to say. So with a combination of just some of the lackluster projects that have come out over the past couple years, and it doesn't really look like we have anything super exciting coming out in the future, it's just, I don't know if this franchise can be saved without having just a hard reset, admitting that they've made some mistakes. Maybe, I know it's been 6 years since the last one came out, and I believe that everything about The Mandalorian and Grogu has already been shot, and it's all in post-production at this point, but maybe take a couple year break from just anything to plan out what the future of Star Wars is going to be with a good through line that's overseen by people who care, like Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, not Kathleen Kennedy. And so, yeah, for me, it's really hard to get excited going forward, which is a shame because Star Wars is easily my favorite fictional universe. I still love it. Like, I'll go back, I'll watch the original 6 all the time. Love them to death. I'll even watch The Force Awakens every so often. Rogue One, Clone Wars, first 2 seasons of The Mando. I love it, but I think the past couple years and kind of just looking at their schedule the next couple years going forward it just spells disaster. I think it's going to be more and more diminishing returns, which means less and less movies and shows, which is a shame because I feel like if they just got a better team together, that it really could be the most profitable franchise for them, and it wouldn't even be close. But let me know what you guys think. Are you excited for stuff going out? What have been kind of your thoughts on some of the more recent projects, like since Mando Season 3, Acolyte, Andor Season 2, Tales of the Empire, things like that. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what I'm not considering. Like, are you hyped? Is anybody hyped going forward? Like, even the most hardcore Star Wars fans? Like, let me know. Help me get back there. Like, I want to be hyped about Star Wars. So, thank you guys for checking this out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.